No, that's okay. I don't have my glasses either. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, April 7th. I'd like to call the meeting to order. This evening, we have regrets from Councillor Guerin. We acknowledge that this land is the traditional territory of the Three Fires Confederacy of First Nations, comprised of the Ojibwe, the Ottawa, and the Potawatomi peoples, and of the Huron-Wendat peoples. We value the significant historical and contemporary contributions of local and regional First Nations and of all the original peoples of Turtle Island who have been living and working on the land from time immemorial. If you are able, please stand for our national anthem.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command.
Car ton bras s'est porté l'épée, il s'est porté la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée des plus brillants exploits.
God keep our land glorious and free. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee. Oh, Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
I would like to welcome members in our audience tonight. Tonight we have some special guests. We have the County of Essex CAO, Sandra Sweers, and Warden McDonald in attendance. So welcome. It's a pleasure to have you. We have a closed meeting report. We'll go to Director Malandrucolo.
Rondi, through you. On April 7th, 2025 at 4 p.m., Council moved into close pursuant to Section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act 2001 to discuss a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that is the extent of my report.
Mr. Malandrucolo, any declarations of conflicts of interest from members of council this evening? Seeing none, if you find yourself in conflict, just let us know later. I need a mover and a seconder of the adoption of the published agenda for the regular council meeting, and it will be as amended as the clerk received a notice of motion earlier this afternoon. Moved by Councilor McGuire-Blaise, supported by Councilor Verbeek. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Adoption of the minutes of the regular council meeting for March 17th. Needing a mover and a seconder that we adopt the minutes of the regular meeting adopted as circulated. Councilor Hammond, Councilor Verbeek. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to our public presentations. We have our annual report from our Integrity Commissioner, Bruce Alman. He is going to give us a brief report on the 2024 calendar year. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. How are you?
Tonight.
Well, it's a great pleasure to be here as usual, although I'm very sorry that I'm here and not there with you. Nonetheless, I'm going to make 5 points about the report very quickly. One of the first points that I want to make is just to make sure that we're all sort of in agreement on what the primary functions of the Integrity Commissioner are, and they're to provide education and training, to provide advice to members of council and to council itself, to investigate complaints and to engage in complaint adjudication and resolution. And on occasion, at least, the Integrity Commissioner has some role in developing town policy when it applies to ethics and integrity. The first major point I want to make is with regard to education. Now, you'll remember after the 2022 election, we had a very lengthy seminar, an education and training exercise to go over the code of conduct. the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, and there were certain primers that were given to members of council in regard to that. It's 2025, and as surprising as it seems, next year there is another municipal election, and we will, of course, my hope is, and my urging is, that council will engage in a vibrant and enhanced program of education and training that will involve more than just members of council, but will also go on and involve those individuals who volunteer on behalf of the communities to sit on agencies, boards, and committees. So that's one point. The second point, however, is that in preparation for 2026, there are certain ethical rules and principles that govern the elections, municipal elections, and in particular, they govern the conduct of members of council when they decide to run for re-election. So I'm going to be speaking in the fall to the clerk and the CAO and try and arrange some time to present to members of council an education and training program with regard to running for re-election to council, because the rules are quite strict about this. So that's the education function. In terms of the advisory function that the Integrity Commissioner has, we issued one letter of advice this year. We did not produce any primers, although we will be producing a primer in regard to the 2026 election. And there were 3 instances of brief advice that were provided in addition to the letter of advice. When it comes to complaints, there was one complaint that was filed, but it was discontinued and no further action was taken on it. In terms of brief service, there were a few instances of brief service in addition to the brief advice that that I mentioned earlier. And then I guess finally, the major point of all this is that there's very little activity, and that's really good. And so this is a very positive development, and it's pretty consistent with 2023 as well. So that's my report. I'm sure you have a lengthy agenda, and I think that suffices for this evening.
Mr. Ellman, we'll get a motion on the table and then we'll see if any council members have any questions. Looking for a
Certainly.
mover and a seconder that the presentation by Bruce Ellman, Integrity Commissioner, regarding the annual report for 2024 be received. Moved by Councilor McGuire-Blaise, supported by Councilor Mady. Any questions or comments from members of council this evening? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
Madam Mayor, I almost called you Madam Morgan. Sorry, so Bruce, when you, or Mr. Ellman, sorry, when you receive an email from council, one of the council members, how long would the typical turnaround time be when you would respond back to that? And then I have, you said there was one complaint, and I'm just wondering what the process is. Would you have notified whoever the complaint was about, the findings, the results, whether it was withdrawn? You said it was withdrawn. Did you notify that council member? And that would be the start of my questions.
Okay, so on the first question, the turnaround would be dependent upon the circumstances. So for example, if someone contacted me before a meeting and said, do I have a conflict of interest? I would try and get back to them before the meeting actually takes place. If it's a more drawn out matter, then it's going to take me longer to give an opinion. By the way, in the first instance, it's unlikely I'll be able to turn around a letter of advice in that period of time. So I can't remember exactly what the time period was on the letter of advice here, but it was relatively short because I think the issues were coming before council pretty quickly. So generally speaking, I would say that whether it's a letter of advice or it's brief advice, it would depend upon the circumstances of the case. In terms of the other matter, normally I would, what generally happens is that a complaint is made, I try and get more particulars with regard to the complaint. I then put it to the member of council who is the subject of the complaint. In this particular case, the matter was discontinued at the request of the complainant. And I would expect that I had advised the member of council of that, but I'm not, I don't have the file in front of me here, so I'm not entirely sure. I'll check it later.
Thank you.
Comments from members of council this evening? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed, and that's carried unanimously. Thank you for joining us this evening.
My pleasure. And it's been a pleasure being your integrity commissioner because there's been so little work.
Yeah. Well, we hope the next year is the same as well.
Me too.
Okay.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Moving on from our reports from our administration, we have Development Services 2025-05, our annual CWATS update. We have Director Chadwick here and Manager David Macbeth. Director Chadwick.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi, and good evening, Council. So just over a year ago, in March of 2024, our municipality's two CWAS representatives at the time, David Macbeth and Corinne Chasen, presented Council with a comprehensive overview of the CWAS program, and in particular highlighted CWAS projects and initiatives in the town of Essex. So since we committed to providing Council with an annual CWAS update, David and I will present you with this year's update, which has been streamlined to only include CWAS projects and initiatives in the town. The link to the more comprehensive report, if you are interested in refreshing your memory about the CWAS program in its entirety, that comprehensive update, or the link to it, can be found in your report. So as a friendly reminder, CWAS programs and projects fall within three categories. The first is the core infrastructure program. That is the physical construction of new bike lanes and multi-use trails. The second program is the paved shoulder program. That includes coordination with the County of Essex during road rehabilitation. And that is essentially to evaluate and install paved shoulders for active transportation. And then finally, the third type of CWAS program is the municipal partnership program. And that includes carrying out educational programs that encourage the use of the CWAS system. So we will get started with the meat and potatoes of this presentation. So with the first slide here, to summarize the works completed in 2024, we'll start with the County Road 50 West Paved Shoulder project. So as you'll recall, in 2023, 2 kilometers of paved shoulders along County Road 50 West in Colchester from Dehinda Drive westerly to Wright Road were completed in 2023. In 2024, the remaining 4 kilometers between Wright Road all the way to County Road 41 at the boundary of Amherstburg has now been completed. As you'll recall, the town was successful in obtaining over $2.2 million in grant funding for this key active transportation corridor from the federal government. This project now completes the County Road 50 active transportation route along the Erie North Shore, bridging and connecting communities from Amherstburg all the way to Point Pelee. Next slide, please. And I will pass the microphone to Manager Macbeth.
Lori, continuing with the completed 2024 projects, started in late 2023. We had started to do the feasibility study of completing the CWAS Trail along Maidstone Avenue from Highway 3 up to Talbot Street North. It was completed by WSP Canada Incorporated. And at the end of the study, they had determined that the most feasible location in this corridor would be to install a 2.4 to 3 meter wide asphalt trail on the south side of Maidstone Avenue with a portion where at the Essex High School where it's flipped over to the north side until it gets to the intersection at Talbot Street North. As part of this, the report, it indicated recommendations for utility relocations and where, like I mentioned, the pedestrian crossing, which be installed would be a lighted pedestrian crossing at that location to the high school, and it would tie and have contributions and tied into the different developments that have been constructed along that corridor over the past few years. Back to Lori.
Thank you, David. Moving on to the next slide. Also in 2024, as we do on an annual basis, we completed some really exciting municipal partnership program initiatives. So those are MPP initiatives. Under the CWATS MPP program, the town's Recreation and Cultural Division, as led by manager Cynthia Cakebread, completed numerous initiatives in 2024, such as a bike rodeo, a safety camp, helmet program, community glow ride, can bike staff training, and more. These initiatives invite the public to learn about active transportation as both an option to reduce carbon impacts and, of course, for a healthier lifestyle.
Continuing now with the 2025 current projects. So starting in late last year, the town with the county hired R.C. Spencer Associates to complete a feasibility study from Gosfield Town Line to the limits at the town of Kingsville. It was $30,000 to budgeted for that study. And as part of that study, the R.C. Spencer came up with 4 different alternatives, which included updating the roadway, having multi-use pathways on both sides of the road, just doing paved shoulders, as well as just a single multi-use pathway. So at the end, 2 options were chosen to move forward with to give us construction cost estimates and to move forward with the feasibility study, which was paved shoulders on both sides of the roadway. And the second option was a multi-use pathway on the north side. So that study is expected to be completed in about a month or so. And that would be used later on for completion of the Sea-Watch Trail in that location, which is currently by the 5-year capital plan expected in 2020. The next 2025 project that we have are different types of engineering design. So we have, because of the different types of capital projects that we have going on within our municipality, we have the multi-use pathway design that is we're looking to post an RFP for from South Talbot Road up to Allen Avenue. That is expected to go as part of the South Talbot Road Maidstone Avenue intersection improvement, which we're hoping to post later this month. We are also currently completing the multi-use pathway design as part of a storm sewer improvement from Allen Avenue up to Bell Avenue, which include that pedestrian crossing I mentioned at Essex High School. And then we are also currently designing the Maidstone Talbot intersection. And as part of that, we are looking to include cyclist signals and pavement markings within the intersection to allow traffic move for cyclists within that design.
Thank you. And all right, next slide, please. Oh, no, actually just right there. Thank you. So in 2025, we just initiated actually this project. So in the MPP projects plan for this year, the town has also and just initiated working with the Waterfront Regeneration Trust on something called the Binational Trail Program and Cycling Network. So what we're doing is under, again, this MPP window or umbrella, is we're looking to improve signage within our municipality that marks the Trans-Canada Trail and the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail. Signage should be installed through this year and completed by spring of 2026. And the reason for the timeline is that the completion of the signage is and will be in time for, or completed in time for, a very exciting binational active transportation event in 2026 called the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail Adventure, which is an annual multi-day cycle tour and awareness ride to promote the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail and the communities that support the trail. So this is going to be a huge one for the region in 2026, and all lower tiers are working with this organization, the Great Lakes Waterfront Trail, to ensure that all the signage is in place for this big event. It is a bi-national event, which also includes the new Gordie Howe Bridge and the active transportation network that's connected to the United States. And then lastly, under the MPP umbrella, Recreation and Culture will also continue to undertake education and cycling initiatives as per an annual basis.
For the 2026, for our potentially planned projects, so as I mentioned earlier, we are currently completing the detailed design. There is a possibility, depending on approval of budget from council, that we'd be looking to complete the portion from Allen Avenue up to Talbot Street North, including the intersection improvements with the works that are being designed. But as you may remember, we did come to council with a application for a grant, and if we're successful in that grant, it'll actually allow us to complete the remaining portion of the trail from South Talbot up to Allen Avenue, which is in the green, and we'll be able to finish off that whole section in 2026 if we win the grant. Next slide. So these haven't changed from the previous year, so they're slightly out of date. They come from the County of Essex, but we wanted to just kind of give you a snapshot of what the expected trail network is in Essex and the timeline. So the lines in green are the short term, the lines in yellow, which is 0 to 5 years. The midterms are 5 to 10 years, and the long term are the orange, which is greater than 10 years. And you'll see that we have portions already along County Road 50 that are completed, which was done in partnership with the County of Essex, and along County Road 18. The paved shoulders in that area have also been completed. We have yellow sections that the county will be doing along County Road 20 and County Road 15 in the upcoming years. And later on, we'll be doing along County Road 12. The town will be responsible for Batten Road and North Malden of that orange section there. And there are multiple sections shown within the town of Essex in the green, although those are once again dependent on the town's budget. On the next slide, this ties together for what the costing is. So overall, on the bottom there, you can see it's 11.4, almost $11.5 million. That's not all town of Essex costs. Those are shared costs with the County of Essex. And as Lori had mentioned previously, we had won that $2 million grant, which helps offset the cost of that as well. So within the short term, they had $7 million, but that included the sections that were already completed by the County of Essex and along County Road 50 there that Lori had mentioned. And then we only have expected later on about 1.9 in the 6 to 10 years range, and in the 10-year plus 2.4 million. So, you know, there's still a few $1 million worth of infrastructure that we need to complete. Some of the reasons that we have the feasibility studies, but those are the kind of expectations that you can see eventually coming to council for budget approval. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Manager Macbeth and Director Chadwick. Any questions, comments from members of council? Councillor Mady and then Councillor McGuire-Blaze.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I wanted to say thank you first. Great presentation, and I love the work being done. And seeing who's in attendance tonight, I can't miss an opportunity to ask for my community. On this road, I do see where County Road 20 is going to be getting done relatively soon, and County Road 50 is already done and almost connected to Amherstburg. So we have a beautiful link there that we connect Amherstburg all the way to Kingsville. And I met a gentleman that rode from Woodsley. He has a house in Woodsley, a cottage out in Livergood Beach, and he rides his bike back and forth, and can't say enough about our trails. We are missing one little section there, though. I'm kind of concerned about County Road 41 that kind of connects County Road 20 and County Road 50 together. They come pretty close there, and it's a small stretch, and it's a very small road with very deep ditches on it. And I'm wondering if there's any possibility that when we do those improvements on County Road 20, if we can include County Road 41 in that too. That's it. Thank you.
Through the chair. So the CWATS map is kind of it's a region-wide approved map, right? So I know the section there that you're showing, and that was in the slide. So right now they're not showing for a trail connection expected to be in that location. And I will note as well that being a county road would be the county's initiative in order for that to be completed and paid for if they ever did decide to move forward with it.
Well, your county reps have eyes and ears on that now. Councillor McGuire-Blaze.
Thank you through the chair. Great presentation. I just have a couple questions. I missed it. My listening ears weren't on. When we were talking about the Maidstone Avenue from Talbot to Bell, Did you say that that was going soon for, that was happening soon for what?
Here. So on Mason Avenue, it would be from a storm sewer improvement that we have proposed along from Allen Avenue to Bell Avenues where the storm sewer is being improved. And so we have the trail design being done as part of the storm sewer works. As of the capital plan that was approved in principle, but not with funding, that is expected to go next year within budget, but it also will depend on your approval as counselors, and whether or not we win this grant will also help pay for a large portion of that, in which case we'd be doing the whole corridor along Maidstone Avenue from South Talbot up to Talbot Street North.
Through the chair. So we're looking at, sorry, because this is a big road for us in Ward 1. We're looking at 2026 for the first phase, let's call it. Now, does that include the developer on Maidstone Avenue, like his portion? Is that so? Because that's part of that street, right?
The chair. So yes, so the developer would either have two options. They would either have to complete the trail per the feasibility study and the design that's currently being done by Stantec Consulting, or they would give us a developer contribution, which we would use those funds to help pay for the trail once it's approved in budget by council.
And then further to my question about the entirety of the project. So we're hoping that next year we can do, I'm going to call it phase 1 in 2026. If touch wood, we do not get a grant and we can't do the entirety of the project in one budget year, what would we be looking at to get us from Bell or Arthur, whatever road it is, to Highway 3?
Through the chair, if I can remember right, through the 5-year capital plan, I believe those works were going to be tied in with the South Talbot intersection improvement, which I believe was currently proposed in 2027. So once again, that is dependent on council's approval of the budget and those items. But I believe, I don't have it open in front of me, but I believe that's the year that we proposed it to complete the second phase.
I would just like to ask our administration, if touchwood, we do not get the grant and we cannot do the entirety of the project, I really would like to make sure the public is aware that the remainder of that walkway is coming. Because we're going to get that first one done and then we're going to get blasted. Why? It needs to go to McDonald's. And that's what we're going to get. They're going to say, this is useless for us. The kids need, so let's just make sure we put a pin in that. So when the work starts happening, if it's not the entirety of the project, that we let the public know the entirety of the project is coming. It's just not in the budget. Thank you.
Looking for a mover and a seconder that the CWATS annual report from Development Services dated April 7th be received for information. Deputy Mayor Shepley, Councillor Verbeek, I just have one quick question myself. Is there any data out there that we're starting to capture on how paved roads with paved shoulders are lasting longer than roads without a paved shoulder? Or is this something, would the county have anything on this? It seems to me like when a road has a paved shoulder, it lasts longer than a road without a paved shoulder, but that's just my subjective, and I'm looking to see if there's for keeping any data on that. Life cycle data.
Through the chair. I don't know of any particular studies. I guess we can reach out to the County of Essex to see whether or not they would have any of this data. They are more likely to have paved shoulders than the town would be. I don't know if Director Gerard would also like to jump in on this, but I will pass it to him.
Chair, I'm also not aware of any studies, but we do have a good relationship with the county infrastructure. We'll touch base with them and see what they have, and we'll follow up by email.
Thank you very much. All in favor? And that is carried unanimously. Moving on to our Fire and Rescue Services 2025-05, Essex Fire Station 3, proposed land for the new fire station. We have Director Morissette here, and we have our Chief, Jason Pilon.
Everybody, and through you. Little background on this station. In November 2018, Essex Fire and Rescue Services conducted a building condition assessment and feasibility study to evaluate options for Fire Station 3. The study found that the building systems were in poor to fair condition, making upgrades to the current station impractical. The recommendation was made to purchase new land and construct a new station. Moving forward to 2022, Essex Fire attended council and identified a potential site for the new station at 2215 Roseboro Road at the Harrow Soccer Complex. However, it was recommended to further explore alternative locations, taking into account the upcoming fire master plan to guide the decision-making process. The fire master plan completed by Lumex Group Consulting in 2024 concluded that Station 3 no longer meets the department's needs and will be inadequate for future demands. Key issues with the station include insufficient space for training, assembly and equipment storage, as well as non-compliant facilities. Given these challenges, the fire master plan recommended replacing Station 3 with a new facility at a different location to better serve the community, not just for now, but for the future. A new station would be designed to meet current and future needs with a layout that complies with building codes, including accessibility standards. In 2024, council approved through capital project to hire an architect for the design with a budget of $140,000. The design will follow the same layout as Fire Station 2 to help minimize costs. Starting with an entirely new design would nearly double the cost. So we are extremely happy with this Fire Station 2 design, and we like to plan to use it for Station 3. Additionally, fire administration collaborated with Tomac Realty to assess potential locations and their associated costs. Within the master fire plan, it identified 4 potential locations for a new station, and they included number 1, the Essex Environmental Services Department, which is the Essex Water Department on Sinisac Street. It was determined the municipally owned Essex Environmental Services site is not suitable due to its small size, access limitations, and existing structures. It cannot accommodate a building large enough for both departments and future equipment. Restricted emergency access could delay response time, and while firefighter parking was adequate, access challenges may affect efficiency. Modifying or demolishing structures would require significant investment on the current site. Number 2 is the Harrow Soccer Complex. The municipally owned property is ideal for a new station, offering convenient access to critical roads, ample space for apparatus storage, and a large outdoor training area. It can support a facility similar to the newly built Fire Station 2, with meeting spaces, a training room, and necessary storage and cleaning facilities. The property ensures no impact on nearby soccer fields and complies with all building codes and accessibility requirements, ensuring safety and accessibility. Number 3 was the lot across from the Harrow EMS base. We considered this location for the station. However, when the architect designed Station 2 on this parcel of land, it became evident that it would be a very tight fit. The layout would likely require access from both Queen Street and the 3rd concession. While the location provides good road access for emergency responses, it doesn't offer enough space for training and doesn't allow for future expansion. The lot size would also lead to limited parking and restricted access for both current and future equipment. Therefore, it was determined that the property wouldn't provide adequate space to meet the department's current and future needs. Number 4 was the lot south of Harrow Center, near the intersection of Dunn Road and County Road 13. The lot south of Harrow Center, situated at the intersection of Dunn Road and County Road 13, is not ideal due to its distance from our staff's current location. Additionally, the intersection of King and County Road 13 could present challenges for apparatus returning to Harrow Center. A lot in this area would provide limited access routes for emergency responders and would move the station away from the Harrow Urban Center. Furthermore, acquiring this lot would require the purchase and/or severance of land. After reviewing all the potential sites outlined in the fire master plan and working with Tomac Realty, we concentrated on exploring just not those 4 locations, but all available locations in Harrow Center. This led to the investigation of several additional sites within Harrow Center, along with their estimated acquisition costs. Tomac Realty reached out to several property owners, and the outcomes revealed that the owners were either not interested in selling and had future plans for their land, found the property sizes were too small, or the acquisition cost would be significant. Ultimately, the focus turned to the municipally owned property at the Harrow Soccer Complex, which was determined to be the most suitable location for the new station. The municipally owned property recommended as a location in the fire master plan offers both current and future advantages. The property currently offers around approximately 150 parking spaces, And with a reconfiguration of the parking lot, it would maintain the existing number of spaces while expanding the capacity to 174 parking spaces, while still allowing ample space for public use, as the lot is often utilized for recreational activities like bike riding and other social events. The site plan in the report outlines the existing layout of Station 2, located at the southeast corner of the Harrow Soccer Complex parking lot. It includes fire department access via Roseboro Road at the front of the station. At the front of the station, a road with minimal traffic. Truck traffic using this road enters Atlas Tube across the street, accessing the factory from both Clark Street and Roseboro Road entrance, which is situated to the north of the soccer complex near the third concession. This layout ensures that public access at the northern end of the current parking lot remains unaffected. The parking lot would resemble the same setup as the current Fire Station 1 here in Essex, featuring a shared lot with the public that is used daily, with designated firefighter parking and clear signage near the station's entrance. It's important to note again, the soccer complex access would remain unchanged and be provided from the north end of the existing parking lot. Furthermore, there would be no impact to existing soccer fields and walking track in the area, ensuring the preservation of these recreational spaces. This location would also provide ample room for firefighter training, as training is already conducted here throughout the year. The relatively quiet parking lot is ideal for driver training and pump operations, with a hydrant available for use. Additionally, the green space, walking path, and open area at the back could be utilized for firefighter wellness and fitness. The estimated construction cost for the new station is $4.85 million, assuming it is built on municipally owned land. If a different location is chosen, additional costs for land acquisition and infrastructure would be incurred. Funding for the project is planned for the 2026 budget. In conclusion, the new fire station will better meet the needs of the fire department and community, ensuring long-term service and safety. So we are recommending that council approve the Harrow Soccer Complex as the site for the new Fire Station 3 in Harrow, and approve moving forward with the architectural design for the location at 2215 Roseboro Road, which has approved funding within the 2025 budget.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. And just another point that I want to reemphasize that Chief Pilon mentioned. There we go. Chief Pilon mentioned this, is that there were a number of other properties that were considered as part of this report, as working with a Realtor. So for one reason or another, whether it was financing, willingness to sell, functionality, layout of the land, a number of these other properties just didn't work out. So we did, there were a number of properties that Chief Pilon spoke about, but there were also a number of other properties that were considered just wouldn't fit the needs of this project.
Thank you. I have Deputy Mayor Shepley, then Councillor Allard.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor. Oh, it's a bad habit. The report was excellent. It answered most of my questions. I love the fact that, I should say first, if money was no object, we could look everywhere, but that's not the case. We're in a world of increase right now. And what I like about this report is we're looking at a property that we own, which gives us the opportunity to sell our old property potentially, that council of the day at that time. But it gives us a chance to use what we have, potentially reduce, and still service the community and give a much overdue fire hall, a new fire hall, which we need out there more than anything. What else was there? I guess that's it. And I support this 100%. Thank you.
Councillor Mady.
Through the chair. Thank you, Chief Pilon, for your detailed output. I'm wondering about the Roseboro Avenue. I don't know if I caught it right or not. Is there a direct drive from the fire station onto Roseboro, or will you have to go through the parking lot as this?
Mayor Bondi, they would create an apron and have so the road can go over top right onto access to Roseboro.
And then Councillor Verbeek.
And through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, great report. I know we've been kicked around quite a bit. It's really thoroughly thought over. It looks like a lot of the problems and the concerns that we had They've been addressed. The parking lot's been reconfigured. We're not going to be losing very many amenities. So great job. I think you guys did a really good job putting this report and coming up with why this is the best spot. The last concern that I kind of really had, and it's like, you know, it got to be pretty low on that list, but still important and important to the people in the community, was that I do know that that's a kind of a popular spot right now where people might go and walk their dogs. And if you're going to be using that back area for training, maybe we should look at putting in a dog park or something at the very back of the property to ensure you have a nice sanitary spot to train. Thanks.
Camera doesn't like me tonight, apparently. So the dog park is actually a solution that we're looking at as part of the Harrow Fairgrounds Master Plan project. So there are going to be opportunities with that. And in terms of training, we're not talking about full-on firefighter training necessarily outside. It'd be more like walking track and using the area out there. So it shouldn't really interfere with any public that's out there. Normally, we would only see the public out there. I believe it's Tuesday and Thursday, or Monday and Thursday nights for soccer. And then otherwise, it's pretty underutilized. So it shouldn't have an impact to the residents that are using it.
Wonderful. Thank you. It's good to hear that we have plans in the works already.
Councilor Verbeek and then Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I was just going to say that when the time comes, I'd like to make the motion that we approve this. And I do want to say thank you to Chief and team and Director Morissette. I know a lot has been put into this for a great deal of time. And actually, I didn't love this site originally, but you guys have done a wholesome search. You've even, looked into locations that, that weren't even originally suggested. I'm just really grateful that you backed it up and you did a whole lot of work here to show why this is definitely the best spot for this new station. And I, for one, am really grateful that our firefighters are finally going to get this new facility. And when the time comes, I'll make the motion that we support it.
Thank you, through the chair. So just looking at it, if I was a resident in Harrow Center, my first question would be, how is this going to impact the call response time to your firefighters? Because we're moving it from what appears to be right in the center of town to kind of on the outskirts of town. So can you just talk really quick about the call time?
Through you, Mayor Bondi, there will be no impact to our call response time. When we did the fire master plan, they look at where all the current locations of our firefighters lived. And that was one of the reasons why they recommended this site. We actually have 4 or 5 fire staff that live closer to that station than where they are now. I know that can change over 5, 10, 15 years, but most of our firefighters are within the Harrow Urban Center.
Further through that, just because most of the residents, the density is south of this location, in the future, will that still give you enough of a radius to continue to staff your fire hall? I know you have to live within a certain radius of the fire hall. You'll still have enough population within the radius in the new location? One more question through the chair. One of the questions that I heard when Mayor Bonnie posted this on Facebook was a question about transport trucks on that road. Do you think that having it on a road there's a lot of industry on that road and there's a lot of transport trucks, do you think having it on that type of road would be any kind of, I want to say disapproval, that's not the word I'm looking for, but pardon? Deterrent, yeah.
I know exactly what we were thinking about too. Like, when fire apparatus respond to calls, they have to follow the highway safety. Like, all vehicles have to follow the Highway Safety Act and pull over. Actually, like a semi truck coming out of Atlas Tube, they move a lot slower. Where cars obviously create more of a hazard for us because they're going a lot faster. So a lot of semis that see us will slow down and pull over, and we don't anticipate any issues with that.
Good questions. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the fire services report be received and that council approve the Harrow Soccer Complex as the site for the new Fire Station 3 in Harrow and approve moving forward with the architectural design for the location at 2215 Roseboro. It was moved by Councilor Verbeek and it was supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. And I will say, good job with the report. Back in 2022, I was very lukewarm on this location, but I know now under our new fire department leaders that we've done a really good job in looking at and exhausting all other possibilities. So all in favor of that? And that is carried unanimously. Fire and Rescue 2025-06, request for funds for the Essex Fire Station 1 parking lot repairs, needing a mover and a seconder that the Fire and Rescue Services report be received and that council approve the post-budget amount approval of $17,197.44 to replace a portion of the front parking lot at Fire Station 1 to be funded 100% from the town's asset management reserve. If anybody's drove by there, they know what we're talking about. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Any questions, comments to this one? The chief is still in attendance. Seeing none, all in favor, and that is carried unanimously. Thank you. Finance and Business Services, threats and potential impacts on U.S. tariffs. We have our manager, Jackson Tang, here to walk us through this report. Welcome, Jackson.
So this report is to provide a response to Mayor Bondi's motion on 17. Well, that the council direct administration to prepare a report identifying ways the town can encourage Canadian purchasing while still acting within applicable legislation, including an assessment of our current procurement bylaw and potential revisions to achieve it. So, first of all, I would like to talk about the major potential impacts of the U.S. tariff. Okay. First, of course, is the price. That will be more expensive. Well, according to the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, U.S. tariff impact on the municipal construction project, which is around 2.1%, that will be increased. So if based on 2.1%, according to our approved budget 2025, so the town will, the total budget will increase 1.113 million based on 2.1%. That's the price. And the second is the delay in delivery. Because when a U.S. tariff imposed, the supplier will find alternative suppliers. And these suppliers may not be easy to find, and it takes time. So the delivery will be delayed. And also the worst situation will be order cancellation. They don't want to honor the service. So at the end, they will not perform and they will not honor what we asked for. So at the end, we need to cancel the order. And well, that is the major three impacts to us, to the town. So price, delivery, and the performance. All right. So what are existing current procurement practices? Well, in fact, in 2022, when we revised our procurement bylaw 2129, we did clearly mention about and to include the principle of supporting local economy through the low value purchase. So the low value purchase, okay? Now for the amount from 0 to 10,000, only one quote, okay? No need to carry out the competitive bidding process. So we can just select the local supplier. Of course, well, based on the reputation and the quality, something like that. And for the value between 10,000 to 15,000, well, usually we will carry out is the informal competitive bidding process that we get free quote to compare, okay? And that we can also have a right to select the local supplier or maybe within the Windsor and Essex area to compare the price. That's what we can do. And also even for the value that is over 50,000 for the request for proposal. Now, request for tender, we cannot because that will go with the price. Whoever is the lowest one, we usually will award to the supplier. But the RFP, because the scoring system, request for proposal, we can put some credit to the proponent that, provide some social and ethical responsibility. Like they can provide the labor, the job opportunity, okay, and concern about the environment that we can help. That can help us to select the local supplier. And also, according to our statistical record, 99% of our town's purchase, that has come from Canadian supplier, including the local supplier, dealer, distributor, agent, whatever. and 100% our construction projects, we awarded to Canadian supplier with more than 90% that is from Windsor and Essex area. So, but however, we don't know the material, construction material from where they purchase. However, we already supported. That means the existing 21, 29. We did a lot of work trying to promote the local purchase. And of course, we have a lot of restriction, well, to carry out this kind of local purchase, because like the trade agreement, that cannot allow us to give preference to local. So for the value, if that is over 133,000, we still need to do the tender publicly. We cannot just by invitation. Okay. So, and also it is difficult to, if I ask you to identify what is the Canadian content, made in Canada and product of Canada, I think most of you will know, well, the percentage is different. Okay, it's different. So it's hard to identify. And also it's time wasting to let our staff, every time when they do a purchase, to figure it out what is the content, how much the cost, okay, this kind of thing is time wasting. So that's why always we will rely on the honesty of the supplier's declaration of the ingredient and the country of origin. So it's really hard for us to do. And also, we are municipal government. We are not federal. We are not provincial. We don't have the right to ban the US product, and we don't even have the right to shut down the electricity supply, okay? So, because of the limitation, okay, it's hard for us to do. And also, practically, it's really hard for us to take away the US product. A lot of American product within the local supply chain. Well, if we take away from them, you still will hurt the local or Canadian supplier, because they are the importer or the agent of the US product. And also some of the product like the software or the fire truck, the fire rescue equipment, because the safety standard and the unique feature of the software is hard to find alternative. You cannot find elsewhere like our software. I think Jack is not here. 95% of our software, that is from United States. So it's really hard for us to say, so, well, you ban the US product, well, it's not possible. That's all our restrictions. So what are our recommendations? Now, the time remain, we should remain committed to support the local community. Just do exactly what we are doing. From the low value purchase, okay, just keep on to doing whatever we are doing. And also what we need to do is to revise the procurement threshold. Well, because right now, the competitive bidding process, that by invitation, that is the maximum value is only up to 50 grand. We can increase that to 130,000 because that is governed by the trade agreement and the legislation. We have the right to just by invitation to select the local supplier to compare the price and go ahead to place the order. Okay. So we can increase, that's what we recommend, the procurement threshold from 50 grand to 130 by invitation. And then we need to remind our staff to make sure that they have the 100% performance bond and the 100% labor and materials bond. That is the guarantee that they can complete the work in time, okay, and without order cancellation. Once if they cancel the order or they cannot fulfill what we are asking, we can draw back all the money. So the guarantee and the performance bond is very important for us. And also we can include some agreement, some clause to pass the risk. Pass the risk to ask the seller to responsible for paying all the custom duty. Now that's an international commercial term named as delivered duty pay, DDP, according to International Chamber of Commerce. And that means, okay, the price, what they quote, include the duties. Okay, even when we do the tender, we can do the apple to apple comparison and make sure that they have included the duties and the tariff in the price. And conclusion, okay, well, because we are governed by the trade agreement and the legislation. However, there's still one exemption, because all the trade agreement and the legislation, well, can be overridden by the provincial and federal government. That means if they have some policy, okay, the new policy that can override and they can allow us to purchase that or ban US product, we can just simply follow. Okay, we just follow, and that works. And finally, because the tariff create, the financial uncertainty of Canada, it is not clear at this point. Well, maybe tomorrow, U.S. government will add another 50%, okay, to Canada. So everything is uncertain. So that's why at this moment we can just observe, and administration will ensure the council remain informed of any challenge, share implication, or necessary policy adjustment, and then we will keep an updated information to the council.
Very much, Mr. Tang. I'll get a motion on the floor and then we will discuss it. Looking for a mover and a seconder that, oh my goodness, hang on. There's so many pages. That Finance and Business Services report entitled Threats and Potential Impacts on U.S. Tariffs, presented by Jackson Tang, Assistant Manager of Business Services, be received, and that council direct administration to prioritize the purchase of goods and services from Canadian manufacturers and suppliers wherever possible to support local businesses in the Canadian economy, and that council direct administration to revise the procurement threshold limits and authorizations under Section 9, Procurement Methods, Tables 1 and Table 3 of the Bylaw 2129. Needing a mover and seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Allard. Comments to the report. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I just want to touch on one particular spot in the report, procurement bylaw 2129. I would like to extend that even to under $10,000 that we could stipulate that it's someone from in the community of Essex. And I wouldn't be opposed to having it posted publicly for public knowledge to see it as a local contractor and what their bid was. And that way, and it's a great piece of advertising as far as I'm concerned, when you see a project that's done in town and you can see who's done it. And if you have similar work that needs to be done, you might want to contract them. Likewise, not contract them if the work's not done up to your standards. I think it's would be I think it's important to promote businesses within our community specifically, especially with such a small threshold. And I think they should be exposed or touted for their contributions to the town. That's all.
Well, yes, it's a good idea. I think we can post it on our website where to encourage those suppliers to approach us. We can tell them, okay, well, what kind of a project coming down to the pipe, but things that, well, now we cannot announce the price, okay, or the name of the supplier because the confidentiality of the information. But it's different from the public tender. The public tender we can announce, okay, the price, who is the winner, those kind of information. Because whenever we disclose the information of a company, a business company, we need to get their consent. But however, yeah, it's a good idea that we can promote and tell the community, all the supplier, okay, well, yeah, come to us, okay, and register or approach me, whoever, then we can tell them. And, we have a list of projects in the 2025 of the booster budget, they can go through and they will know what are coming down to the pipe.
Please.
Thank you through the chair. Just have a question. Is it possible, is it something that we can ask in the request for proposal to say what percentage of this project is being done by Canada and by other countries? Like, we don't have to give a dollar value, but could we just say and not have our staff do that, but have the person submitting the proposal do that work and just say 50% of this project is going to be fed through Canadian resources?
Well, yes, we can ask. However, the reason, okay, once you know the percentage of unless, okay, you give the scoring. You give the scoring, say, oh, you have 60%, that is carried out by Canadian, okay? And then I will give you 20 marks, okay? That kind of stuff, yes. But you need to be careful to mention or specify in the tender document. You need to tell them, well, but however, okay, well, the percentage cannot be too high because as I said, well, the trade agreement has governed us, okay? Well, we cannot just give preference to those people. But however, unless we say you have some rationale and the reason why we give 60% for those people is from Canada, you hire people, unless you have some reason. Because that need to do the debriefing later on. When we award the contract to the successful bidder, we need to convince them what's the reason why you lose the business. What's the reason why that is a successful proponent? That kind of stuff, we need to do a lot of things. And sometimes it's really hard because particularly for those supply and install or design, okay? Well, it's hard to divide it into, break it down into pieces. And because if you break it down, even the later on when they ask for price increase, that part, which portion, that we need to consider. It's a lot of work we need to do. Is it possible? Your answer, yes. But however, how much effort we need to spend, that will be a lot of effort.
But would it be effort on the person bidding on the job or bidding on the product that they're selling us and not so much effort on us? Like, I'm not asking for our staff to do that work. I'm asking for the person submitting the proposal. Just, we're building an addition here. There's 100 tons of steel. I'm gonna throw a number out there. How much of that is Canadian steel? It would be nice to, even if we didn't give it preference, if at the end of the day, we could say, we're spending $2 million on this and 75% of it is coming from Canada. That's all.
Yeah. Yes, we can ask the breakdown. Like some of the project with like a Gantt chart, we can ask for the details. If the purchase value is large enough to attract those people, they are willing to break it down and provide the information, I would say yes. But however, if you are talking about 60 grand, 70 grand, I don't think they are willing to spend such a large of effort to show you the details. But yes, if that is million project or even $500,000, they will consider. And I'm pretty sure they will submit with the breakdowns.
I want to thank you for the fast turnaround time on this report, and it was a really good reminder of our procurement. I think a lot of residents automatically assume that we can buy Canadian all the time, and we try, but it's not always possible. So we do already have a motion on the table that we receive the report and that we direct administration to purchase Canadian services from manufacturers and suppliers when possible, and that we revise our procurement threshold. That was already moved and seconded. All in favor? And that is carried. Looking now to economic development, corporate grant funding update. We have Mr. Nelson Silvera here.
Through you, Mayor Bondi. Yes, so we have presented a report to council on an update on corporate grant writing. We wanted to give council an overview of some of the projects that we were working on and writing grants for. Also wanted to give council an overview of, or an update on the Rural Economic Development Grant that we applied for in 2024. That grant outlined a position, which is a business relations coordinator in economic development, and that is Rayanne Schroeder. She's here with us tonight. Some of the work that she's working on is obviously writing the grants that are outlined in that report, but implementing the grant match software that was also included in that grant application, which really gives administration the opportunity to track new grant opportunities that we've been actively chasing and applying for. It also gives administration a seamless software that not only identifies grants, but tracks grants that we have applied for, approval rates, and a one-stop shop for all our documentation as well. Also gives finance the opportunity to track funds that are incoming or pending, which makes it a lot easier. So Rand's been working with basically every single department within the municipality to actively apply for grants. I know some of those grants were mentioned tonight when we were talking about the Maidstone project. Every time we hear a large capital project, similar to we heard the fire hall tonight, that's something that is top of mind for us as well. How are we identifying grants, identifying projects that the municipality has, and also looking at potential future grant funding opportunities that we can apply for as a municipality. It's not an easy process. There's denials, but there's also approvals. We think that we have a pretty good shot at a large percentage of the grants that we're applying for, and we're hopeful. The other thing I wanted to touch on as well is Rayanne's position is not just writing grants. We've been actively out in the business community as well. So far, we have about 50 touch points with businesses across the municipality, with business walks in Harrow and Essex, talking to businesses about support programs that are available at other upper levels of government and other business-related organizations. Those businesses have expressed, if they've expressed any issues with something that's going on in the town, or as a business, we follow up immediately and trying to get the information that they need. So what we've done right now is kind of broken down those grants for you, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Comments from members of council? Councillor Hammond?
Yeah, and I don't know who to direct this to, but we got grant application for the sports field. And we got a proponent that's coming up on what happens with this grant? Should we get it and this opponent isn't able to go through?
This is a similar grant that we applied for with the past council, even before we were looking at using other portions of that property. This is the most recent grant. It was put on pause with the provincial election, so we're still waiting. This grant would actually help. The whole complex was $22 million a number of years ago, so this would still only cover a portion of it. So it would still cover the soccer fields, the baseball diamonds, all town amenities if we were able to get the full amount or even a portion of that amount.
Get a motion on the table, and then I'll go to Councillor Allard, that the corporate grant funding update be received for information. Moved by Councillor Allard, supported by Deputy Mayor Shepley. Councillor Allard?
The one I was looking at is the short-term rental enforcement fund. We were declined for that. Does that change our look at as in for if it was just for the enforcement of the
Through you, Madam Mayor, no, it doesn't change our level of service whatsoever. In fact, we often look at different grant programs that come out in order to offset the cost of our current service or current proposed capital budgets or projects. So no, it doesn't affect the level of service. Unfortunately, we weren't successful in that one. We've been in contact with the federal government on that grant specifically and let them know that we have a shovel-ready project and that we're actively enforcing short-term rentals, and we thought we were a good candidate. And those conversations don't end, right? Even though you get a denial, we're pretty persistent in ensuring that our case is heard. So if any additional funds do come available, they will hopefully be the first on the list.
Questions from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you for coming tonight. You have another one? No. Planning? 2025-08 Heritage Designation for 18 Gordon Avenue, the Carnegie Library Building, and 87 Station Street, the Essex Railway Station. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the planning report be received and that bylaws 2931 and 2932 to designate certain properties within the town of Essex as cultural heritage value or interest be read a first, second, third time, finally passed on April 7th. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Counselor Mady. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Finance and Business Services, acceptance of surety bonds policy. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Finance and Business Services report be received and that council approve the attached acceptance of surety bonds policy. We'll get it on the floor, Counselor Verbeek, and then we can talk to Counselor McGuire-Blade. You want to go? Anne Marie Eunice will walk us through this one.
Through the chair, good evening, council. So I'm going to do my best to walk you through this on here, but I'm going to present the proposed policy regarding the acceptance of surety bonds as a form of security on development. So in March of 2024, Mayor Bondi put forward a notice of motion directing administration to review the acceptance of surety bonds on developments. Currently, the town requires developers to remit either cash or letter of credit, as they are the easiest to draw upon for their performance related to obligations pertaining to their developments. So an example would be like infrastructure construction. A surety bond is a form of security that requires a third party to act as the insurer in case of a default. After the notice of motion, administration began heavily monitoring the situation as legislation continued to change regarding the acceptance of these securities. Thoughtful research was conducted and external opinions sought to ensure an acceptable level of risk for the town in the event there was ever a default on performance from a developer. In late 2024, Regulation 46124 for Section 70.3.1 of the Planning Act was enacted, and this provides the landowners and applicants for approvals in respect of land use planning matters where they can stipulate that a surety bond may be required to secure their approval. Following this, the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing released bond requirements to assist municipalities in the acceptance of these. The development community continued throughout 2024 to advocate for acceptance of these bonds to both council and administration, and administration began heavily studying bonds in place of other municipalities, as well as existing policies which were few at the time. Now that legislation has passed, many templates have been released in conjunction with the released legislation, and the town has been able to draft the policy in front of you with minimal risk levels pertaining to it. This policy also shows initiative in accomplishing the provinces and local priorities of creating more homes. So if there is any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
Thank you. I believe our development community will be happy. Any questions from members of council to Anne Marie? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to results of request for tender for the Walker Drain, needing a mover and a seconder that the drain report be received and that council award the request for tender to the Walker Drain to Mark G Contracting in the amount of $460,524.55, including non-refundable harmonized sales tax. Needing a mover and a seconder for this. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions from members of council? Director Gerard is here. Councillor Hammond.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. My concern is where exactly this drain is, and if we're going to have to close Walker Road at this drain for any period during this.
So this section of the Walker Drain is from Walker Side Road along the 12th concession to the new Ducharme subdivision area. So where it crosses the road and goes in behind the old Lucier Estates.
Yeah, that's where my concern is. I'm remembering when another drain was there closing the road, and unfortunately, the problem I have is with our low bid being, only being able to do the work in the 12 to 16 weeks. That's a concern for me. The next bid, I believe, is only $20,000 less, and they say they can do it in 6 to 8 weeks, which I think is a little more favorable. I'm just wondering what council thinks.
Through the chair, so we are bound to our procurement bylaw, which does state that we have to take the lowest bid, regardless of the schedule. All of the tenders were vetted by the drainage engineer, which in this case was Root Engineering, who would have validated the schedule and the pricing accordingly. So, yeah, we are bound by our bylaws.
We tried. Any other comments or questions from members of council? Maybe on future reports like this, we could just get a little, like a map so that we can get a visual on where it is. Because Walker, everybody just thinks Walker, not Walker Side Road. So a map would be helpful. All in favor? Opposed? And that is carried. Legal and Legislative Services, increase in funds for spay and neuter voucher program. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the Legal and Legislative Services report be received and that council approve an additional 50 vouchers for feral cats and 2 vouchers for dogs and cats of low-income families to be approved with the expense totaling $10,400 to be funded from the Animal Control Reserve. Looking for a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Allard, supported by Councillor Rabique. Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor Shepley.
The mayor got right this time. Yeah. When I read through this, it says we reduced it to 64, and that was for 2025, if I'm understanding that correctly. And now we want to add it an additional 50. And is that 10,400 the cost of the additional 50, or is that the total cost of the program?
10,400 is the cost for the 52 vouchers. So we're doing 50 for feral cats and 2 for dogs and cats at $200 each. So that's 10,400 for the 52.
I'm just trying to understand the rationale, why somebody could refresh my memory, why we reduced it to 64 and then why we're now, not even a year later, increasing it by 50.
So through the chair, what we found historically was that this program was being underutilized. So what we did is we came to council last year with some proposed amendments to the program. And as part of those proposed amendments, we also tried to estimate what we thought the total vouchers used was going to be. And we estimated it at 64 and 5. So we underestimated. We're bringing it back up to 114 and 7, which is still about 61 vouchers for cats, less than what it was before, and 3 vouchers for cats and dogs, less than what it was before. So still less than what it was before, but closer to that number. And I also did want to note that that reserve account has about $70,000 in it, and it's all from unused vouchers from when we started the program back in 2013 or 2014. So we're trying to utilize that money that was underutilized in the past.
So my question then is, if we've increased the amount from what we were giving out. So if we went with the old number, what we were giving out, what's the total? Like, how much is this increase? Because once that reserve runs out, we're going to be faced with having to increase the tax levy on this to cover it, because that's my concern. Because if we increase the number now and it carries year over year, we're gonna burn through what's left there.
So as I mentioned, the reserve was a savings amount that came from previous budget allocations for the voucher program. So the voucher program comes back to budget every year, and it's council's desire to determine how much that budget amount is. So council could control what the upcoming budgets are. So council has a say in how many vouchers we produce on a go-forward basis. So if council doesn't have the desire to increase that, like if we thought there was a need to increase that amount in the future and council didn't have the desire, they can address that in budget.
Thank you through the chair. So one of the questions that I was asked is, sorry, I'm just trying to choose my words. Does the dog licensing pay to sterilize the cats?
Thing that we need to talk about is the Lakeshore Dog Pound budget, because that has its own separate budget that is paid for, which the Lakeshore Dog Pound budget, there's a meeting this Thursday, and the Lakeshore Dog Pound budget is with an animal control officer, 80 grand a year. So we have a discussion on the roundtable. I've asked that we discuss dog tags on the roundtable so that we could get information on how much money we get for dog tags, how much money the dog pound costs, and how much money our animal control officer is. So there's going to be more information coming forward if they don't have all the answers tonight.
My deputy clerk is here to correct me if I'm wrong. But the licenses that we receive enter into a bucket that goes towards animal control as a whole. So the license amount offsets the total tax obligation that has to do with animal control as a whole, which plays some sort of part in this, but in a big picture, it's everything that we do as far as animal control goes.
I find it, I know that animal control is a big deal, and I know that we do not want feral cats. I also feel like we penalize responsible dog owners by making them have a license, but we allow cat owners to not license their animals, let them out whenever they want, and then we give them money to neuter them. We don't give money to neuter the dogs, and almost every dog owner has neutered their animal if they're a responsible pet owner. But even if they don't, they're not allowed to just wander the streets anyways, like cats are. So that's just my comment on it. The other question I have is, how do we determine who is low income? How does somebody get a low income voucher?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councilor McGuire Blaze. So the low income is, yeah, it's on Lauren. Sorry, Lauren. There's no camera over here. So the low income is based on the Stats Canada. There's a table that we use. I unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me. I don't have access to my personal records, but it is published by the government. If Anne Marie was here, she would know which one it is. It's that low income table that's done every year. So when the resident comes in, they have to bring evidence of that. So typically, it can be an income tax return, it can be an ODSP statement or anything like that that shows, and it's a per member. Like if you've got two members of your household, this is the cutoff limit, and we'd have to calculate how the income for the whole family.
Through you, Madam Mayor, something the Deputy Mayor said prompted this thought, and that is that now that more and more people are becoming aware of this program, more and more people are using it, and our hope, I would expect your concern in the years going forward that the numbers grow and we need to put more money into it. A thought would be that we'll need it less and less. Just this year, because the word got out, I know of 2 barns that took care of between 13 and 19 cats that were just continuing this cycle because they weren't aware of this. So hopefully if we can continue on that path, we won't be needing more vouchers. We'll be needing less because there'll be less unfixed cats out there blowing the numbers up.
Yeah, through you, Chair. I just wanted the clarification on 2 vouchers for dogs and cats. Is that 2 vouchers for dogs and 2 vouchers for cats, or 2 vouchers for dogs and cats together?
You, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Mady. So that is either or. It doesn't matter. So if someone comes in with an owned, those are for owned dogs and cats, right? So if someone comes in for low income owned, so that's the difference. So it can be either or, if that makes sense. And if I may, just in response to Councillor Verbeek, when we talked about the TNR versus spay and neuter, when residents come in, we assess what they're asking us for. So if a resident will come in and they say, you know, I've got a bunch of cats out my barn and I want to use a voucher, we will say to them, you know what, we think that you're a better fit for the TNR program. Can we take your name and number and put you in touch with a volunteer so that we can utilize that program rather than the vouchers? The other thing that we do is we monitor the vouchers because they are for feral cats, not owned. So we also monitor that. So we have denied people on that basis because it is their cat. That cat lives in their house. This is for feral cats to control that. So just so that you're aware, there is a screening process to this.
You, just for the follow-up then, if it can be either or, are we finding where, like, who's using it more for the owned pets then? Are dogs going without being fixed, or is there even amounts every year?
Mayor, to Councillor Mady, it's mostly for dogs. When people coming in with the lower income like that, it is mostly for dogs, which is nice to see because we do want, you know, for those with lower incomes to be able to have that voucher available to them.
During our roundtable, we'll have a lot more discussion. I just sent everybody the Lakeshore Dog Pound agenda, and the town of Essex is the #1 municipality that lets dogs loose. We have more than Lakeshore, and Lakeshore has more, like 1/2 our population and a lot more land mass. So I don't know what it is with the town of Essex, but we have a lot of dogs at large. Just further to what Councillor McGuire Blaze is saying, I would be totally in favor of cat licenses. It's just, I don't even know how you would enforce it. So I've heard that over my time on council is like, how would you enforce cats? I would love to have a rule. If you feed them outside, you have to fix them and they have to be ear tipped. It's just an enforcement nightmare. The city of Mississauga has that bylaw. Like, you're actually not allowed to have outside the cats there. And that's probably the extreme because the cats that we're talking about here are not owned cats. So to say that, you know, they don't have to pay a license and then they get to fix their cat for free. They're community cats that somebody at some point in someone's life was negligent and let this cat breed, and now there's more and more and more. There's pockets of cats throughout our municipality, and if we don't keep working to fix them, it's just going to get worse. And this was a top complaint in my first term on council, 2010 to 14, and it's kind of dissipated, but it's going to ramp up again if we don't start working together on this. COVID really did an impact as well because the vets weren't taking animals as much. So we were getting a lot of traction and then we couldn't get appointments. We also have a meeting at the Humane Society or with the Humane Society coming up because we need to make sure we have access to readily accessible appointments because that's one of the challenges as well is getting an appointment. And so lots of moving parts. Yeah, I think that's it. Councilor McGuire Blaze.
Thanks through the chair. Are we the only municipality who does this? Do all the other municipalities do this as well?
All the other municipalities do it as well. We were one of the middle ones to join the pack back when Donna Hunter was here, I would say 2013. Okay, Councillor Hammond.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. I didn't see it, but I'm assuming that $200 is for a spade, and then only $75 to have an animal neutered.
Mayor, to Councillor Hammond, it is up to $200. So it depends on where they bring the vet or what vet they bring the animal to. It is up to $200. It could be less.
Oh, so whatever is okay.
Station Council, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to, we have Heart Lock Control, PLCE for certain lands within 80 Maidstone Avenue West. Looking for a mover and a seconder that the report be received and that bylaw 2430 be read a first, second, third time and finally passed on April 7th. Moved by, we'll get it on the floor and then if we have questions. Moved by Councilor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councilor Hammond. And we have Director Chadwick who will brief us on this.
Mayor Bondi, just as a refresher to council, the part lot control exemption PLCE, as Mayor Bondi indicated, it's a planning instrument used to subdivide townhome or semi-detached blocks into individual lots. So it's essentially to facilitate the sale of individual dwelling units once construction is complete. So this approach is used because it's difficult for the builder to essentially build the dwelling, we'll call it the structure, to ensure that the common wall between the dwelling units is constructed exactly on the property line. So when you see a registered plan of subdivision, such as the one for 80 Maidstone, you'll often see blocks for semis and towns. What that means is then when the structure is built, the property lines are established. Once the structure is built, the property lines would then be established and then sold if council and technically speaking, the approval authority, which is the county planner, if PLCE has been granted. Again, you need to be exempt from part lot control. So in the case of the report before you, PLCE is being requested for lots 1 through 10 of the 80 Maidstone Ave subdivision to create a total of 20 semi-detached lots for individual sale, and then for blocks 11 through 15 for a total of 22 townhome dwelling lots, again for sale. Thank you.
To our director. Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to corporate tree inventory assessment. We will go to Director Morissette to present this to us.
Thank you, Mayor Bondi. And as we pull up the presentation, I do have a presentation I'm going to show council tonight. So bear with me for a few minutes as I play the role of the Lorax and speak for the trees. So for the rationale for this study, so we can go to the next slide and next slide. So the rationale for this study was a couple of years ago, we had quite a bit of significant weather impacts that affected the town of Essex in 2022 and 2023. So if you recall, we had the ice storm and the microburst that took down a lot of trees. So we realized at that point that we needed some professional assessments due for their expertise. We wanted to increase the public safety, and we were looking for future recommendations on different tree types that would be best for our municipality. So pairing that along with the objectives from the climate adaptation plan, which was to ensure tree and plant species established are native, diverse, disease resistant, and have high climate adaptability, include climate vulnerability and risks. So for power outages, capacity limitations, health and safety impacts, road drainage failures, in infrastructure planning and assessment, and promote tree planting opportunities within the community. So we took those rationales and we brought it to council for budget to get the tree assessment done in last year's capital budget. So we did the tree assessment during the summer last year and into the fall, and then we gathered all the data, and now this is where this report's coming back with all of the information. So go to the next slide, please. So some of the important values of trees, some of these are lesser known, but they produce oxygen while storing carbon, reduce the temperature, reduce storm runoff, remove particulate matter from the air, reduce noise pollution, increase property values, provide habitats for animals, and reduce heating and cooling costs if they're strategically planted around the homes. So some of the other lesser known items is that crime rates are less in areas of high tree cover. So modeling shows that 10% of tree canopy coverage is associated with a 1.2% fewer property, personal, and total reported crimes. And it was statistically significant in those research findings. Another one is that people recuperate from surgeries quicker in their rooms if they have a view with trees. And they also experience reduced pain medication, fewer post-surgical complications, reduced negative comments from nurses, and positive effects of healing. And then lastly, trees reduce soil erosion. So they reduce soil erosion by increasing stability of the ground through root systems and displacing rain when it hits the canopies from hitting directly on the ground. So next slide. And next slide. So the results was that we had 4,688 trees that were evaluated. So these are trees that were along our right of ways on town properties, which would include municipal buildings, recreation buildings, parks, but they did not include or account for naturalized areas. So if you think of the area behind the Harrow Arena at the Participa Park Trail or Tully Bush, those are examples of some areas where there's such a bulk amount of trees. Those weren't taken into account, which if we added those in, we'd be talking hundreds, if not thousands more trees that we would own as municipal properties. Next slide. So this is the results of the coverage areas. So we were focused on the urban center areas. So you can see based on that map where the targeted areas were. And you can see a couple that are sporadic. So if you look in between Harrow and McGregor, there's a little bit of a dot there where that would be a municipally owned cemetery. So those areas were taken into account as well. Next slide. So these were the top tree species that we have. You can see 19% silver maple, red maples were almost 9%, honey locust a little bit over 5%, same with Norway maple. So you can keep looking on and see the top 13 tree types that we have with other as almost 33%. Next slide. So the tree conditions, if you look at the smaller graph, you'll see that good accounts for 85%, 83%, which means that 85% of the tree has living crown on it. Fair you'll see at 11% and other is 6%. So if we blow up the 6% of the other, almost 4% of those are trees that should be removed in approximately the 12-month area. You can see less than 1% are considered dead, and then poor 1 is looking for more immediate, which is 0.2%, and then 0.77% should be removed within the 6-month area. Now, those are recommendations. Not necessarily anything may happen with those trees, but there are certainly areas where we'd want to have focused attention to monitor those trees a little bit more. Next slide. If we look at the trees area by land use, we can see that 58% of the trees that were surveyed are in residential areas. So those are residential right-of-way areas. 33% are in park areas or facility areas. And then there's a smaller breakdown of commercial and vacant or other. Next slide. So some of the other results was we have an overabundance of maple trees. So if we add up all the trees that we have within the municipality, we're looking at 40% of maple trees. So what this means for us is that we have very poor diversity in the municipally owned trees. And just one thing to touch on as well, we consider a municipal tree if it was on the right of way and it was touching the property line. So it doesn't necessarily have to be over or fully on our property. Anytime that there's risk of a tree touching the property line, then we counted it as a municipal tree because we would have some sort of liability with that tree. So, and that comes from the tree management bylaw that we passed last year. And then there are inherent health issues. So the issue that maple trees have, it's a fungal infection called verticillium wilt, which causes slow decline in trees until it deteriorates and requires removal. So they're also susceptible to, it's called girdling roots, which means that the roots, they grow underground and they essentially curl up and choke the root base and the tree. So those are some things that maples experience. And what we should be targeting is a future goal of increased diversity. So we have only a maximum of 10% of a tree type. So to achieve this goal, a little bit later, we'll talk about the recommendations, but to achieve this goal, we'd want to amend the approval species list that we have so that we can avoid putting in maple type trees and use a more diverse range of trees. And then the town also took over the responsibility for trees that are planted within development areas. So as developments occur, instead of having them plant the trees where they would pick the type, the locations, we take that money and we go out and we plant those. So we have more control over that and we can work on the tree species that we want. Next slide, please. So these are the recommended species. So it's a little tough to read this, but it is it is in our database, so we know which ones we're looking at. But you can see on the right-hand side all the recommended tree species, which, going back to the previous slide, we know that we're trying to avoid the maple tree types. Next slide. So this is where trees have. This is a very interesting slide because people don't necessarily associate what the value of a tree is. So if we were to take all of the trees that we have in the municipality and we valued them, we'd have almost $19 million of tree value. So that doesn't necessarily mean replanting tree value, but what that means is if I have a tree on my property and it's close to my neighbor's property, but it's not my neighbor's, and that neighbor comes and chops it down, I can have that tree assessed for a value, and that's the value that that person would have to pay me if I were to sue them. So you can't, if we look at a tree, sometimes you can have a tree that might be valued $30,000. Well, I can't just go to a local nursery and buy a $30,000 tree. You can't transplant that, it's too big. So that's the amount that you would get paid because that's its value, not necessarily the replacement value. So with this, the monetary as well, we have 256 trees that were determined that they needed to be removed. So if we value those, and this is just an estimate because the tree removal can range very significantly. We had one last year that cost us almost $7,000 to remove because the size was so immense. But if we value on average at $1,500 per tree, we're looking at $384,000 to remove all those trees. And if we replace them, we're looking at approximately $500 per tree. So that's where the $128,000 value comes. Next slide. And next slide. So our recommendations include for maintenance. So increasing proactive maintenance. We do a very good job getting out there when we hear of a complaint, but what we should be doing is getting out there a little bit more, seeing what those issues are. And that's a lot easier to do based on our staffing resources within the Parks and Facilities Division, not necessarily the Roads Division because it's such a wide network. So when those are the case, we're really relying on those reporter problems where residents are reporting their potential concerns, and then we can have staff go out there and evaluate. So that includes regular inspections. We want to make sure that we're removing those dying and dead trees. So we know that there's 256 of those, or 6.6% of our inventory, which is a good number. It seems high, but it is a good number because a lot of municipalities experience around the 10% area. So we're doing pretty good in that front. One other thing that we'd recommend is anything under 30 dBH, which is the diameter of the trunk at your breast height, is if it's under 30, then we would say that we should be removing it internally. And if it's over 30, then we'd want to contract it out. And that's not a hard set number. That's just kind of a guideline. If it's something that was slightly over 30, then and we could take it down, we certainly would. Next slide. So for additional recommendations, we look and recommend doing the development of a tree nursery at the Harrow Soccer Complex for $45,234.60. So that tree nursery, we actually did receive grant funding from Enbridge Gas for $30,000 towards this project. It was something that was talked about at the last budget deliberations. So we told council we'd come back with a report on some suggestions on what we can do. And as well, $15,234 was put away from council last year as part of the 2025 budget deliberations for doing something with trees. So that was council contingency and council discretionary funds that were put into the Green Fund Reserve for a purpose for the trees. So when we were doing this study, we did have a budget for $50,000 to get it done through some good initiatives rather than contracting out the job, which would have been more expensive. We actually just hired a forester internally for the summer, so we were able to get the job done at a lower price than we were expecting. So we were able to save almost $27,000 on the project. So we're recommending to council to reallocate those funds for unsafe tree removals to help speed up the maintenance process and make sure we're increasing the safety. And then the last recommendation is to approve the updated tree listing, which was presented in bylaw 2205, which is the tree maintenance bylaw. So with that said, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
Through you, Mayor, a couple of questions. First regarding the inventory. Have we, the leeways through people's backyards that most of our power lines run through in Harrow and stuff like that? A lot of trees up around them. We noticed how devastating they could be in the last ice storm. Were these trees on backyards of people's properties included in this inventory?
Mayor Bondi, no, we only focus on the ones that were in public right-of-way areas. If those were hitting power lines, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe that's one of the power utility companies that would do the trimming around those because it would be their infrastructure.
Yeah, and my other questions regarding our approved and unapproved. I got a couple of trees on my list here. I see willow is prohibited. I know the willow tree, although it's a very pretty tree, it also is very good around as far as shoreline protection, and so I was wondering if there's alternatives for what a willow tree can do as far as shore protection and erosion, what the alternative is to that. And also regarding acceptable trees, I don't think I see any kind of fruit trees on that acceptable list or nut trees.
To address your first question about the willows, so I can't speak 100%. We did work on this list with the forester that we had on staff last year. So these were the recommendations based on him and his 40+ year career doing this work with the city of Windsor. But in terms of willows, if you look at the native range of willows, it is Europe and Asian. So it wouldn't be native to our area, and not every situation we have as a native tree, because certain trees have some benefits that native species may not have. So it's really situational. So we didn't want to just limit a good tree that would work in one area by just saying, well, it's not native, so let's just avoid it. So that's one thing about that. I can't say which one would be an alternative specifically to the willow, but just looking at a willow, I know sometimes that with in public right-of-ways, we're also looking at the canopy areas to make sure that they're not interfering with people. So willow trees tend to drop down heavily, which we have one at Sadler's Park, and we're always finding that the branches are ripped off because kids are trying to act like Tarzan on them, right? So without knowing what's in the forester's head, my thought process would be that we're trying to keep the canopies a little higher to avoid that. And in terms of fruit and nut trees, and similar to the willow, they tend to get very dirty when they drop the nuts or the fruit. So we wouldn't want to have that situation happening.
Consider that too as well, but also like a fruit tree, like a cherry tree, the birds are gonna take those things away before anything starts dropping, let me tell you.
You and through you, Madam Mayor. I like the report. I liked all the work that's been done in it. I think often trees are overlooked, and that stat that there was less crime in a canopied area. That's a really neat stat. I never heard that one before, and that's really good. Really, my only kind of complaint or maybe my vision is that when we start up this nursery, it would be really nice if we had like a solid horticultural department that we started with this. Like you were saying, that you had the expertise of a fellow that had 44 years with the municipality of Windsor. It would be great if someday we could say, here's a fellow with 44 years of municipality of Essex, well-versed, well-trained in the trees that could, answer the question of what a willow is good for on the spot. I would really love to see that happening.
Through your Mayor Bondi, if council wants to give me money for more staff, I'm certainly willing to do it. But all jokes aside, we do have a certified arborist on staff right now. They just have a larger portfolio, so they're not always able to dedicate all the time that we would like towards this specific purpose. But I mean, if we're talking years, maybe decade down the road, if we found that there was a business case to have something like that, where it would be more advantageous of saving money to have an internal staff rather than have contractors on staff, we would certainly present that to council. We have in many cases, council has been looking for those financial savings, and administration is being fiscally responsible in all of those situations to try and give the town of Essex residents the best bang for their buck.
So just to follow up on that, the arborist that we have on staff, why did we hire out the tree study? Like, is he not capable of doing that then?
Through Mayor Bondi, he is certainly capable, and he has done some of the tree assessments in some of the areas throughout our properties. But the amount of trees, we're talking almost 5,000 trees. There was no way he would be able to do that with his existing workload, to be able to do all the other horticulture stuff and the town beautification work that we would have internally to be able to take on both of those workloads.
Just one more. Thank you. I'm learning here. So from now that we have this done, we have our study done. Is it going to be up to our arborist now that he's going to follow up with this every year? He's going to keep checking on the trees and do the study throughout?
Through your Mayor Bondi. So with an inventory this large, it's really going to be very department specific. So for instance, the operations staff, if they know that they're removing a tree, they need to make sure that they're updating the database, or if they do an inspection on a tree, it's up to that person that's doing the work to update the database. And it's a lot of work that was put into this, but the recommendation for tree maintenance is to have your hands on a tree every 5 to 7 years. So depending on the size of the tree, it may be a little bit sooner, or the health of the tree, it may be a little bit sooner, but it's something that we would continually have to monitor. And once we get to that 5 to 7 year timeline, we may have to come back to council and say, hey, listen, based on the resources we have, we should look at doing this study again and updating that inventory. But for now, what the goal is to do most of that, especially the town-owned properties that aren't right-of-ways. I'm talking parks or facility properties, that kind of stuff, internally for those ones for sure.
Good conversation, Councilor Verbeek.
Through you, Madam Mayor, clearly I'm really excited about this. I'm happy to see all of it. I know at budget time, when I had motioned to get our leftover discretionary and contingency funds into that green fund, I was hoping to funnel it into some trees, as I had stated at the time. This is beyond, this is wonderful. My question about this nursery that I'm super excited for, and I'm hoping in the, moving out, the savings we're going to save with the trees that we're creating ourselves, rather than buying, as we add them to our trees, we'll save enough that maybe we could at that point add an educational component, or grow the program. But I guess my question when I look at that is, so we have the property, so it's not going to cost us anything. We have the staff. With this kind of startup, what is that like? What does that get us in the line of trees? Is that going to, and I know you probably you can't tell me exactly, but is this going to give us 200 baby trees, or 100 3-year-old trees, or where will we be starting?
Mayor Bonnie, my goal to start would be to aim to get at least 100 trees. Whether that, we can go as small as a little stick that we have there for 10 years and it's growing before we take it out, or we could have something that's a little bit more mature where maybe it sits there for 2 or 3 years. But the goal is to get younger trees, let them grow for a few years, and then we can plant them on our own properties. And anytime we remove a tree, we would make sure that we plant a tree in that same spot so that we have this constant cycle of being able to basically recirculate trees and keep that nursery going the entire time.
The idea is to, start off with some mid-size probably, so that we can start seeing it, pay off in the near future. So we have trees to start using. Is there an opportunity for us to do one of the IRCA plants where you get a whole mass of the cheap little ones and have volunteer plant out like they will do in every year at this time?
Through you, Mayor Bondi, we did look at that situation, but the only problem with that is when they plant those, they're looking at bulk amount of trees that are very small, and the expectation would be almost decades of those trees sitting there. So if we are looking to do something where we can see maybe 3 to 5 years using some of those trees. So if we were to go with that program, it may not get us what we would be looking for our goals, as those trees might be too long. And also, we're looking for based on the list that we have, we're looking for a lot of diversity in the trees that we're going to be planting as well. So I know that when they do the bulk plantings, they tend to be similar tree styles oftentimes. So that's one of the other things that we're looking is having that diversity.
Go ahead.
We don't have to take it off the table completely. We can move forward with the direction you're going and then still keep that in our back pocket, right? I know my sister did that with Thurka, and she did a whole bunch, and you're right, she had to use the same kind. So then after a few years, she started separating them and adding others. So, thanks.
Counselor Hammond, did you speak once already?
It's just.
Okay, has anybody that hasn't spoke wished to speak? Okay.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Jake, so I'm seeing a request for a tree spade in the near future. 5, 10 years. Should we start preparing for that?
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So that's something that we have traditionally rented on an annual basis. So if we were to rent it, I don't think it's that expensive to rent. Knowing that potentially if we do the tree spade, we do them all in a day and put the burlap bags on them to contain the moisture, and then we'd look at transplanting them relatively quickly. It's not something that we'd want to spend months and months doing because it just prolongs how long everything's going on. So I think that if you did everything in a relatively short period of time, it would keep the rental cost of the equipment low. So it's another piece of equipment that we probably wouldn't have room to store, and for the frequency of use, it seems better to use it as a rental.
I like that idea better. Thank you very much.
Get a motion on the table that the community services report be received and that council approve a post-budget approval in the amount of $45,234 for the capital project development of a tree nursery to be funded from the $30,000 grant from Enbridge and $15,000 from the Green Fund, and that council approve reallocating the remaining funds of the $26,784 from the capital project entitled Corporate Tree Inventory Assessment to be used for removal of trees that are deemed unsafe, and that council approve amendments to Schedule A, bylaw 2205 being an approved tree list for the town of Essex owned properties. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Verbeek, supported by Councillor Mady. I do have a question myself. Okay. So I just, we're going to have enough staff resources if we go forward with this, or that was the one. The other thing is, do we do any training with our current staff members, like conferences? I know I've seen it before. I'd love to go myself, but it wouldn't benefit me. But there's like the Canadian Forestry Conference. Is there any way we can send our horticulturists to that?
Through you, Mayor Bondi. So our arborist does go to courses on this. So there's requirements in terms of a point system that they have to achieve so many points over a certain number of years to maintain their licensing. So with our corporate budgets that we have for training, we do make sure that he has those requirements that he's hitting. And when we have surplus budgets, which we don't usually for training, but we do keep that in the back of mind that we would like to send additional courses if they're possible.
Like to see that position go to a forestry conference. I think it would benefit us. And one of the other things, one of the lessons learned maybe of 2024 was when we had a tree clearing on the bluff in Colchester. And I think that is an example of when we need to consult that position, because we did get quite a few comments about that. I think this is great. I think it's really visionary. From what I remember from the deputy mayor's motion on this is that we were looking at the urban centers as the priority and within the budget, and we weren't sure that that was going to be covered. So not only did we do the urban centers, but we did outside the urban centers within that budget. So that was really good bang for our buck there. So that's good. I love having an inventory here. And I think, it's something that we learned out of this kind of goes into our emergency management, something that we learned out of the great ice and windstorms of 2023 to be more proactive, because we all saw a lot of trees down that were taking out power lines and people's internet and everything else that year. So any further questions, comments from members of council? Seeing none, all in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to our search special events for April report 2025, looking for a mover and a seconder that the cert be received for information. Councilor McGuire Blaze, Deputy Mayor Shepley, any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to the summary of outstanding council reports. This is the last one that our current CAO will present us. I'll get a mover and a seconder, and then our CAO can speak to it. Moved by Councilor Mady, Councilor Hammond, all in favor. Whoops, hang on, you can speak to it first.
Click on it. It's the same report in the past, but if you'll notice on the third page now, we did add a section for budgets referred to 2026. We're able to track that now too.
Thank you. And I think another thing on our wish list that I think would help us is if we see like the flooding mitigation that was on our summary of outstanding reports. So that could be like in the flooding mitigation initiatives plan, for example, it can tie back to that summary of outstanding reports. Like they'll have a code. So then we can start to check them off if I'm making any sense at all. All in favor? And that is carried. Moving on, Office of the CAO, flooding mitigation initiatives and plans. Our CAO is to speak to this.
So council, at the December 16th, 2024 meeting, Mayor Bondi introduced a notice of motion requesting a report from the administration outlining the initiatives and projects completed in 2024, as well as those planned for 2025 that aim to address flooding within the municipality. The attached report is a collaborative effort among all town departments and highlights both completed and planned actions to mitigate flooding. The report is organized into 5 key sections, each listing actions taken or planned. Their operational initiatives, capital projects, climate change adaptation and disaster recovery efforts, administrative and public engagement initiatives, and key projects and policies for 2025. Funding for the actions outlined in this report are included in the approved 2024 and 2025 operating and capital budgets. Any additional or enhanced measures identified as necessary to further reduce flooding risk will be brought forward during future budget deliberations to ensure appropriate resource allocation. The town of Essex continues to take proactive and multifaceted approach to managing flood risks through infrastructure improvements, operational diligence, climate adaptation, and public engagement. The 2021 declaration of a climate emergency, along with the implementation of the climate change adaptation plan, reflects the town's long-term commitment to resilience. These ongoing efforts, combined with strategic planning investment, will help to ensure the town remains well-equipped to protect their community from flooding in years to come. So if there's any questions, either myself or the appropriate department head can address for council.
Table looking for a mover and a seconder that the CAO report be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor, supported by Councilor Mady. Questions, comments from members of council? Councilor Mady.
Thank you to you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for this great report. It's nice to see all the things that we've asked for and that you've been working on all listed out in a nice orderly fashion like this. A couple questions I had was with the Phragmites program and the drainage maintenance map. Are these available to everybody to look at? Like, is this part of our mapping system, or is it just reserved for town staff right now?
Through the chair, right now it's just for internal staff. It's still like, although we have it, it's still kind of in the development stage. It's not really great for public viewing. We do hope at some point to be able to release that to the public as we refine it. It's actually being created by our drainage students every year. So you can imagine that we only have about 8 to 10 weeks every year that we can work on this mapping. So it's something that we're hoping to refine and be able to release to the public in the future.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that too. If right now a council member wanted to see what part of that map, can we get like ask for it and have a screenshot sent to us or something like that?
Absolutely. I mean, any questions that you have regarding drain maintenance or Phragmites control, we can certainly provide any answers to. Most of the time it'll probably involve providing you some type of map if we're talking about specific issues. So I would just encourage you to reach out to myself or our drainage superintendent. We can answer any of your questions and provide mapping wherever we need to.
Thank you. And then the I&I studies that were done, 24, 25, is there a report still coming to us on those, detailing what was found?
Through the chair. So the way that we actually did the program was we utilized a contractor to do it. So it's not an engineering style report. In essence, what it was is like we used like a contractor that does like the flushing and that type of report. So it's not really great for public feedback. What I would say is I can provide council with an update if you would like one. We can create a report that kind of identifies the issues and the number of issues that we found. So I can put that on my list to do. That's not a problem.
Thank you very much for that. And then probably my last one for right now is that in part of the report, it did say that alarms were put in at our pump stations. Now, is that, this is like kind of like one of those fingers off, noses in type of questions. How can we see those alarms in or see how they operate? Is that something that we could do, like maybe like when we do our yearly tours or something like that, or do I have to ask for a report on it or something?
Fair. So it's a complicated answer because every pump station is different and how it's alarmed is different. So there's different technologies where we use Miltronics where we actually we'll actually use a sensor, and some of them have floats. So there's just like your sump pump, it has a float in it. Once it tips up, then it tells us, oh, this is a high level alarm. So there are different technologies out there for how we alarm it. We've alarmed all of the pump stations for a high water alarm. So in essence, once it hits a certain level in the pump station, it'll trigger an alarm out cellularly to staff that are in charge of those pump stations. So again, once it hits a certain level, it pings their cell phone, starts calling them and lets them know, oh, this pump station's at high alarm. That alarm can be for a multitude of reasons. It can be because the pump station's not working, or it can be because we're just getting flooding and it's inundating the system. So they're all various different types of technologies and various different types of situations. Every pump station's different. If you have a question about a specific pump station, you can reach out to me and I can give you some more information on how that specific pump station works.
You all, I'll work on doing that. Thanks.
Council? I think one of our AMO topics should actually be that disaster mitigation program, that one that the province helped us with, because we had 22 applicants who got $90,000. And there were so many ways that people became ineligible that it almost wasn't even an effective program. Total of $90,000 was paid out to 22 applicants, and they were ineligible due to, if their bedroom was in the basement, it wasn't considered a main living area. So for the province to come in on their, knight in shining armor horse and put numerous ads in the paper that they're here to help us, $90,000 to the extent of the damage and the amount of hours that Director Gerard and his team put into touring and preparing that binder that showed the devastation from one end of our municipality to the other, doesn't really feel adequate to help our residents out. So I would like to us to potentially talk about that being an AMO conversation, because the amount of water that we had in that 2023 event, no amount of municipal infrastructure could have protected everybody. It was just like the flood. So we need to be able to count on the province for those crazy weather events. Another thing I'd love to see in the future, maybe when that comes back, is an update on the uptake of our subsidy programs. Maybe just once a year we get a report on if our subsidy programs are even if people are even doing that. And I'm also wondering if this report can go somewhere on our website. I don't know if we have like a disaster area. And I also think we need to really also keep up with the continued messages about emergency preparedness with residents, that municipalities can't do everything. Homeowners have to protect themselves, but we also need repeat messages. Check your backflow valve. check your sump pump. Make sure that you have a backup to your sump pump. Make sure your battery is good. Make sure your sump pump is good because stuff happens all the time. And just this week, we had somebody flood again. So that being said, we do have a mover and a seconder? No? Okay. I do? Okay. I have a mover and a seconder. And any further comments? All in favor? And that is carried. Reports from our youth council members. How you doing over there?
Thing to share this week.
Okay, well, I have something to share with you. If you could pass along my email to anybody in high school that needs youth hours, please do. Sarah is getting them registered as a volunteer list, and whenever we do community cleanups, we blast out that email list. So there's no excuse for any youth out there needing community hours. We'll get you cleaning up. County Council update, Deputy Mayor.
On April 2nd, County Council received the first ever County Council Development Charges Study, with public release coming on April 15th, followed by community meetings. The study recommends $12,998 per unit for new single-family homes, $46.50 per square meter for commercial and industrial builds. These rates align with other upper-tier municipalities in southwestern Ontario. Right now, the county does not have development charges. This would fund growth-related services like regional roads, EMS, libraries, waste management, and long-term care, on top of what local towns already charge. After April 15th, stakeholders will review the study, and a draft bylaw will be prepared, and public meeting in May will gather feedback. Council also approved sessions in all 7 local municipalities and will include comparisons to Chatham-Kent fees in the final report. County Council also has approved an agreement with the Catholic School Board to install a pressurized sewer line along County Road 8. This force main will service St. Thomas, Villanova, and LaSalle, connecting the school to existing sewer system at Riverview Drive. Fire Coordinator. Essex County Council is supporting the appointment of Windsor Fire Chief James Waffles as Fire Coordinator for Essex Windsor Region, and Windsor Deputy Fire Chief Damon Hart and Leamington Fire Chief Don Williams as alternates. The official appointment is made by the Office of the Ontario Fire Marshal, which requested a letter of support from the Essex County Council. The annual remuneration the county pays for the fire coordinator and alternates remains the same, $5,000 for the coordinator and $1,250 for each alternate coordinators. And finally, a notice of motion by Mayor Bondi introduced a notice of motion that would direct staff to prepare a report outlining what it would cost to engage a consultant for feasibility study on regional policing. The motion will be debated at the future county council meeting. This discussion was prompted by a motion from the Amherstburg County Councilor requesting we look at regional police force, which we discussed in our 5 o'clock meeting. And that's the county council report.
Deputy Mayor, I just also want to highlight the importance of the development fees at the county level. It would raise the cost of developing quite a bit in all municipalities. So it's something when you see that open house, please go to, and we need to make sure that all of our developers and our Essex staff are there as well. So it was kind of a win to make sure each municipality is getting an open house. The other thing is the notice of motion that I raised regarding having a discussion on regional policing. I wanted to make sure that we had the conversation here in Essex on policing before we completely shut the door at the county. So I know that we had a few action items out of our 5 o'clock meeting. And, if council wants us to further that discussion at the county, please let us know. But I think it would cost us millions more and maybe not even increase our level of service. So if there's no comments on that. Yep, Councilor McGuire, please.
Thank you through the chair. When it comes to the development fees that the county is thinking about adding, is that just to properties on county roads, or is that every property, every development?
Mayor to Councilor McGuire, please. Yeah, it's for all development.
And just further, if you know the answer, how do they justify adding a development charge when they're not using any of the county's municipal services and it's all municipal?
So it's a good question, Councilor McGuire Blaze. As soon as we got the county agenda and I got home, I sent the report to everybody, so it would be back there in your emails. So there's Essex services and then there's county services. So county roads are county intersections, the county library system, EMS, growth in EMS, how we need more ambulances, how we need, more roundabouts. It's not in the county's mind, I will say, it's not duplication because there's county services and there's Essex services. Director Chadwick might be able to explain it a little better.
Mayor Bondi, through you to Councilor McGuire Blaze. And that's a great question and great points that Mayor Bondi has made. So the services that municipal soft services essentially and hard services, the DC the county would collect, well, technically the municipality would collect on behalf of the county and remit to the county, would be utilized towards those services such as library, EMS, roads, and all residents within the county of Essex are essentially, they access those services. And so through growth, by adding another dwelling unit within the county, it's essentially paying for that growth. Growth, as you know, pays for growth at the municipal level. It's the same type of model that's being proposed for the county as an upper tier level of government.
Thanks. Last question. And this is just for the county. So the city of Windsor would not have these development charges. This is just for the county of Essex.
So I think the city of Windsor is referenced in the report. I just resent it to everybody. The city of Windsor is referenced, and I think many county municipalities would still be lower. So if you can read the report and then also watch the meeting, you can see the debate back and forth, because there may be a time where this council wants to send a resolution to the county, yay or nay. Like that could be something that we want to do. And there was I think the max fee was it 12 or 13,000 per house, which is quite a bit. And then it doesn't mean we have to charge 12 or 13,000, but then it was around $47 per square meter of commercial and industrial, which does seem kind of high, but it is that balance. If we have to bring in more ambulances, if we have to do more roundabouts, do existing taxpayers pay it, or do new people that are coming to our area pay it? So at this point, look for a motion that the County of Essex regular meeting items listed in agenda item 12 be received. Moved by Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Hammond. All in favor? And that's carried. Correspondence to be received. 13.1, we have all the correspondence to be received, and we can pull out others after. Looking for a motion that we receive them all. Moved by Councillor McGuire Blaze, supported by Councillor Hammond. All in favor? Is there any types? Councillor Hammond.
Yes, thank you, through you, Mayor. The county council letter with freshwater protection agreement. I'd like to show support for that, and also ask to forward that to Caldwell First Nation Chief Nikki Van Orsot. I hope I pronounced that right. And Walpole Island First Nation Chief Leela Thomas, just to inform them of the efforts on by the county. Thank you.
Councillor Verbeek. You have the list, Director Malin-Duclos? Okay, all in favor? And that is carried. Is there any other pieces of correspondence that any council member would like to pull out? I do see that we have a response from West, and I think that was in regards to your motion, Councillor Mady. So is there anything you would like to talk about on that?
Well, I'm disappointed in their response that they don't feel obligated to, but they're not obligated to discuss with the town on where it operates its or relocating its bus stops. Out of hope that they'd have been a little better partner in coming up with where the best stops might be. I still don't think it's fair that they get to decide where they put a stop, and then we have to decide if we would need to put a crossing there, if we need better lighting, or if we need to make it safer somehow. I still believe that this should be something that we need to partner up with. So there'll be more coming from this.
Be able to respond to the resident that contacted you? Thank you very much. Anything else from the other correspondence? Okay, moving on to correspondence to be received and supported. We have a resignation from the Essex Festival Committee, that the resignation from Leanne Nickel from the Essex Festival Committee be received, and that council directed administration to write a letter of appreciation and thank her for her commitment. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Hammond. All in favor? And that is carried. 13.2.2, Windsor Essex Child Youth Advocacy Center, looking for a mover and a seconder that Victims and Survivors of Crime Week, May 11th to May 17th, that the correspondence from Windsor Essex Child Youth Advocacy Center asking council to consider proclaiming Victims and Survivors Crime Week in the town of Essex be received and supported. And if supported, should I get a motion to receive and support? Council, do you want to receive and support? Councilor Verbeek, receive and support? Moved by Councilor Verbeek, supported by Councilor McGuire Blaze. All in favor? And that is carried. Director Malin-Duklo.
Mayor Bondi, through you. Whereas crime affects not only the immediate victims, but also deeply impacts their families and the broader community. Whereas child and youth victims and survivors of crime and their families deserve empathy, meaningful support, and dedicated resources to assist in their recovery journey. Whereas the Windsor Essex Child Youth Advocacy Center provides essential services including navigation, referrals, ongoing support, monitoring, advocacy, and specialized intervention for children, youth, and families impacted by crime or violence, promoting justice and healing. And whereas Victims and Survivors of Crime Week offers an opportunity to recognize WECYAC's essential contributions, increase community awareness, and emphasize the importance of supporting survivors.
Now, therefore, I, Mayor Bondi, on behalf of council, do hereby proclaim May 11th to May 17th, 2025 as Victims and Survivors of Crime Week in the town of Essex. Committee meeting minutes. I'm looking for a mover and a seconder that the committee meeting minutes listed in agenda item 14, together with any recommendations to council noted therein, be received, approved, and adopted as circulated, and to make note to council that the committee recommend to council that they direct administration to investigate the property located at 146 Adelaide Street in Harrow for the possibility of designation. Needing a mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Hammond, supported by Councillor Allard. Any questions? All in favor? Yeah, question?
Just like to point out that the 146 Adelaide Street is indeed in Colchester. And it's the former summer residence of former Prime Minister Paul Martin.
Exciting. All in favor? And that is carried. Financial indicator review, looking for a mover and a seconder that the financial indicator review based on the 2023 financial information be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Mady. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. We have no new business tonight. We do have a notice of motion. Here's the gavel.
Point one, what's the motion for Mayor Bondi? Do I get to read that, Joe?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Shepley. Through you. The following notice of motion was presented at the March 17, 2025 regular council meeting and is being brought forward this evening for council's consideration. Moved by Mayor Bondi that Essex Council direct administration to prepare a report on the feasibility of redirecting unspent funding from the Colchester and County Road 50 Community Improvement Plan CIP program, including information on potential improvements to existing programs and/or introduction of new programs and budget impact.
Seconded by Councilor Verbeek. Mayor Bondi, would you like to speak to your motion?
Thank you, Mayor Shepley. I think it's pretty self-explanatory, and I did see on our town social media today that we do have requests for proposal for a consultant going out already. My question is to council is kind of what do you, if there's any scope that we want to narrow it down. For example, in the past, we phased out the community improvement plans in both Harrow and Essex when we got the streetscapes. Then we phased in the Colchester County Road 50 community improvement plan. Is it time to focus back more on urban? Just wanted to discuss it with council.
Councilor Blaze.
I don't have any questions. I do want to support this motion because I think it's a good discussion. It's something that we should consider. I feel like the businesses applying for this on County Road 50 are few and far in between. And I do feel like our cores, our businesses in our core centers could benefit from this right now, especially with what's happening with the tariff situation. We are seeing in Essex, some businesses are struggling. I'm sure in Harrow as well. So I think bringing this back and giving those businesses a little boost that we're supporting them would be really beneficial. So I will support this.
Thank you, and through you, Deputy Mayor. Well, no, the idea of having a report come back on the feasibility of it, I'm in favor of. I'd also like to maybe in that report, they could maybe provide some insight on why it wasn't all taken up, if it was just lack of businesses, or if the businesses out there don't need this kind of program, but maybe a different type of program could benefit those types of businesses. Seeing as how like the agritourism is a much different business than Main Street. And then, it would be really nice to look at ways on how we could spur some more business growth in that area. The County Road 50 through the Main Street there. It could use some revitalization and maybe even a bigger business area. Yeah, so if we're going to have a report come back, I'd really like to see if it was the wrong type of program for that area and maybe some reasons why it wasn't taken up.
That be a friendly amendment or just a direction? Director Chadwick.
Deputy Mayor, just so everyone's aware, Mayor Bondi indicated just a moment ago that we issued just today an RFP, request for proposal, to seek consulting services to complete an industrial sector CIP study. That was under Council's strategic plan. We obtained a grant for that study as well, as Council approved in the budget. What we did, however, knowing that this notice of motion was coming through and noticing that as well, that we've seen kind of a lower uptake of the rural CIP on County Road 50 and in the hamlet itself, we wrote in terms in the RFP itself to allow that consultant the review of the town's current and existing urban and rural CIP programs, those that are currently funded, which is just the Colchester one, and those that are currently, we'll say, still in existence, but not funded anymore. That's the Harrow and the Essex CIP. So we wrote in those terms, and what we said in those terms, and again, this is now just posted for proposals to come back, is review the existing programs, also provide us with recommendations for any improvements, for any changes, for any enhancements, and for any redirecting of funds. So that is our hope, that we come with a big picture for you as council, not just for the industrial or new CIP program. With that said, the target of presenting that report, again, this is out of the RFP in the proposal, is for the end of the year. And that's for council's decision making at the end of the day. So in other words, it's a report for your information. It's the study, the CIP study, and should council decide essentially, you're going to have all those financial impacts in front of you to make those decisions on what to do.
No more questions? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? That carries. Back to you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Shepley. Through you. The following notice of motion is being brought forward for presentment only and will be brought forward for council's consideration at the April 22, 2025 regular council meeting. Moved by Mayor Bondi that council direct administration to draft a letter to the County of Essex Council to be signed by the mayor on behalf of the town, attaching the town's letter to the province regarding skyrocketing rent rates in land lease communities, and asking council to report on their concerns regarding rent rates for land lease properties within their municipalities, and if they have similar concerns, to advocate for the county to take the lead on addressing this with the province as a regionally collective concern.
Reports from council members. Counselor McGuire Blaze, we'll start at your end and go around.
Well, the Essex Fun Fest committee is hard at work planning everything. We are still looking for a few more vendors. So if you know somebody who wants to be a vendor at the Essex Fun Fest, please have them reach out. Visit our website and all the vendor information is there. We're also still looking for volunteers. So if you have somebody who wants to volunteer, we're looking for adults and teens. The age, which is the number one question I get, how old do you have to be? We're looking for high school students and older. If you do have grade school students who are looking, they would need to be chaperoned by you as an adult or as a parent. So we can find them spaces, but it would have to be a family event. So yeah, if you are interested in helping with the Fun Fest, please reach out to the committee and we would be happy to have you. We're also looking obviously for new members. So if you're looking to sit on the board and be a member, please fill out the application. You can find that online too. Thanks.
Through you, I want to make a shout out to Leslie Huffman Balsey. She's the third generation to be honored into the Essex County Agriculture Hall of Fame. Congratulations to Leslie and everybody out at the Fruitway.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. That's excellent. And if you haven't had a chance to get out to the freeway, without a doubt, get out there. You can get really close to how they grow different crops on their small acreage, and what a great family operation that is. And also one of the biggest proponents for County Road 50. That family loves it, and I'll tell you when you show up there how improving those shoulders and then having the tourism come through has totally changed the landscape there. So what a great shout out. Thank you.
It was the first time I ever got a chance to attend the agriculture induction this past Thursday, and it's something that I'll make sure is on all of our calendar and we all know about going forward. I just, my schedule hasn't allowed me to before, but it was pretty amazing. So we should be really, really proud. So going to bylaws, bylaw 2433 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of March 17th to be read a third time and finally passed on March 17th. Finally passed on April 7th, sorry. Moved by Councillor Allard, Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? All in favor? And that's carried. Bylaws requiring a first and second reading, that bylaw 2436 to be read a first and second time, provisionally adopted on April 7th. Moved by Deputy Mayor Shepley, supported by Councillor Verbeek. Any questions? All in favor? And that is carried. If you are watching this, make sure you watched our 5 o'clock meeting tonight that we had tonight about policing. And next Monday, we have our committee of the whole, which is our last one with our current CAO. And that's at 5 to 7. You can join us here in council chambers or tune in live. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Mady, Councillor Hammond, any objections?